morning, class. Good morning, Ron. And welcome to the wholesale retail training event of a lifetime. And in fact, today, our objective is to spend the entire day picking apart the business of rehabbing a house. First, we're going to start with what to pay for the house, and then we're going to talk about what to do to it, what to spend on it, watching the financial part of it, as well as how to get it fixed and then get it sold at lightning speed to a cash qualified buyer to get check in your hand as soon as humanly possible. We're going to talk about today not only what I do, what I've been doing now for 20 years, but also what thousands of my students are doing throughout the country, nationwide, on a regular daily basis, many of them making in excess of $1 million annually doing what we're going to discuss today. Before I get started, I'd like to interview some of the folks that I've asked to stand up to the microphone who are already rehabbing houses where they live and find out what's going on in their life. We'll get that on tape right up front here so we can see that this stuff is real from the get-go. I'll start with you, sir. Go ahead. Who you are, where you're from?
My name is Chip Varanth from Tampa, Florida.
Tampa, Florida. Okay, Chip. And you do rehabbing. About how many of them do you do, monthly, annually, or whatever?
Actually, I've only been at it since December, about 4 months. I've done one a month.
One a month. So you've done about one a month. What's your average profit per deal, Chip?
15 to 18,000.
Okay, and what is the price range at which you're retailing the properties for?
Just under 100,000, around 85,000.
Just under. Okay, good enough. Thank you, sir. Well, first of all, how many do you intend to do in your coming year, your first real year in business?
My goal is 2 a month.
2 a month?
Yes.
So you're going to average 20 before you get out of here. You just don't know it. Plus, right. So you're going to average $40,000 a month.
That's
net
correct.
Profit. Mm-hmm. Net profit.
Yes, sir.
That's NET, net profit. Okay. What do you do now, Chip?
This is what I do.
What did you do?
I was in retailing.
Oh, well, not a big giant leap, is it? And if you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. Okay, but what was your income in your previous profession?
It depended. I was 60 to 100,000.
Okay, so you intend to blow the doors off of that?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next, we'll go to the back mic. We'll swap. Hold your applause till they're done, please. Go ahead.
Hi, Ron. I'm Steve Lohr. I live here in Jacksonville at the beach. I just started in December as well, and I've done 3 houses
okay.
So far.
Average profit, Steve?
About 21.
21. All righty. And you still working full time?
Oh, no.
You full-time real estate entrepreneur?
Yes, sir.
A bum, huh?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How many do you intend to do in the next 12 months?
I want to do 20.
Okay. Times 20. That's 400,000. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing? Ernie Amos here in Jacksonville. We've had multifamily rentals, and we've done a couple of rehabs now, doing about 15 each, making about 15 each on them. Houses we've sold in the 70s and 80s.
That's your prices are in the 70s and 80s.
Right, selling in the 70s
and you're netting about 15 each.
Right.
Okay, we're going to fix that today. And how many do you want to do in the next coming year?
At least 6. We're hoping for more. You know,
6?
We're still working our full-time jobs, but
I can see that.
To give it up pretty soon.
All right. Well, good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah, Ron, I'm Nick Simonis, and I'm a RE/MAX real estate specialist realtor, and we do about 5 per year.
Okay.
5 to 6 per year.
Average profit?
Between 15 and 20.
Okay, and your sales price? Average?
Between 50 and 60.
50 and 60?
Yes, sir.
Wow. You low-priced properties, aren't you?
I buy them foreclosure and
I mean, are you selling them at retail price, though?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
In good condition to owner-occupants? Yes?
Most definitely, yes.
Okay. Why are you dealing in such low-priced properties?
Because we hold the money on them, and we go into neighborhoods that maybe some other folks...
So you're dealing in low-income areas?
Right.
Exactly. Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Russ Thomas, St. Augustine and Jacksonville. Doing about 6 a year now. Average profit is anywhere from 20 to 30,000.
Okay, you full-time or part-time?
Full-time.
And you're 20 to 30,000? All righty. What do you know these guys don't know?
I've been to your courses.
So well said. Okay, you go part-time or full-time?
I'm sorry?
Part-time or full-time?
Full-time.
All righty, and how many do you intend to do your upcoming year?
This year I'm hoping to probably double that number. I'm in the process of doing 2 right
Double
now.
6?
Yeah, at least.
So you want to do 12?
Yeah, at least.
What are you going to do with the other 9 months?
I don't know. I'm also doing lease options and agreement for deeds.
Okay.
and
Oh, so you,
financing.
gotcha. So you're going to do 12 rehabs, but you're going to do other kinds of deals as well, as everybody in this room should be doing. All right? Thank you. Back?
Hi, my name's Paul. I'm from Tampa. Just started in property. I've got one that I'm closing on right now. The reason I'm here today is really to get kind of fired up on real estate. I've got a friend or a mentor that started in this 15 years ago, told me his net worth was $1.5 million from scratch and $17,000 a month cash flow. I figure if he can do it, I can do it too. Just keep working at it.
Well, let me make a point then. Aaron. Frankly, if you can't create $1 million worth of net worth in a year doing what we do, you're doing something wrong. So what happened 15 years ago does not resemble what happens today. In this world that we're talking about here, creating $1 million worth of net worth is no big deal anymore. I mean, it just isn't. You guys ought to be shooting for $20 million net worth, especially if you're talking over a 15-year span. What was good for our forefathers is not good enough for us.
Okay.
Not with what we have to work with today. But are you going to rehab these houses? Are you doing this full time?
No, I work full time. So if I
Sorry.
did one, if I did one a quarter, I would feel pretty good about it right now.
Well, if you did one a month, you'd feel better, wouldn't you?
Oh, sure.
That's a part-time
Sure.
job, one a month.
Yeah, that's
And how much have you? Are you going to net on this one?
Well, I haven't got that far yet. I'm just going to the closing table right now. I purchased it for
Okay.
$44,000.
All right. What's it worth after repair?
$65.
How many dollars worth of repairs?
New roof, paint.
Okay.
Little touch
Today's going to be a bad day for you.
Yeah.
Have you closed on it yet? Has he closed on it yet? Huh?
I'm waiting on
Get up to the mic.
Sorry. I'm waiting on the inspector and a couple other.
So you haven't closed on it yet?
No.
What will you lose if you don't close on it?
Nothing. I get 100% financing on it.
Okay. By the end of the day, I want you to come up to me and tell me whether you think you ought to close on this deal or not.
Okay.
Because you're headed for a seminar.
Okay. Good.
And
That's
it's going
what
to
I'm
be,
here to learn.
and you're not going to like the outcome of it. All right. I'm telling you, folks, the cost of education is minusculely cheap compared to the price of ignorance. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Vicki from Jacksonville. I've got a background in architecture, but it was not until I found this that I learned how to make money at it, and I've done 3 rehabs this year. I've cleared 33 on 2 and 20 on the other.
Very good.
So
And are you part-time or full-time?
I went full-time in November.
You went full-time in November. A bum. Welcome aboard.
Thank
So how many are you going to do in the next 12 months?
We're looking at 6 this year.
6? Okay, so
And
that's
going
not
up from
full-time.
there.
What you really want is a full-time income working part-time. Is that what you want? Say
That
yes.
sounds nice.
Because if you're
going
going
to
to
do
do
a lot
6.
of hours in now.
Yes. 6 deals a year is by no stretch of the imagination a full-time job.
Well, 6 rehabs
6 any deals.
plus other things.
6 any deals. That's a part-time job with a full-time income, and I am okay with that if you're okay with it. But I assume you've got something to do with all your other time, because it's sure not going to take
I
a
will
year.
be doing flips and some owner finance properties that are not really
Okay.
big rehabs.
All right. Thank you. Give them all a big round of applause. Thank you very much. Here's the 4 ways we make money in real estate, and everything you do in the art of buying and selling houses revolves around these 4 ways, and anything else is a derivative of them. For those of you listening to the tapes right now, all of the folks in this room are from the Jacksonville or surrounding areas. I can assure you we have people all over the country, wherever you live, with equal or greater testimonials than those you've just heard. We're going to spend the day raising your expectations, simplifying the business of retailing and rehabbing houses. However, that is just one part of the business. Number 1, for-profit centers, number 1 is rehabbing and retailing houses, exactly what we're going to discuss today and pick apart in its minutest detail. The second part of the business is wholesaling houses, finding the bargains and passing them on to the bargain hunters who generally rehab them and retail them. Those bargain hunters also come in the form of owner-occupants looking for a good deal on some sweat equity that they can get into their own place they're going to live. Retailing number one, wholesaling number two, we refer to as the ugly house business. These properties do need work. That's why our focus is on buying them at a discounted wholesale price. And I will caution you, there is no exception to that rule. If the property is ugly, it must be bought at a discount. Your focus is getting it cheap. We're going to talk about what to pay for it here in a little bit. However, number three and number four. Number three is lease options and options, and number four is getting the deed. Both of those are the pretty house business. Those businesses do not even resemble the ugly house business. It's a totally separate part of the business that many new people coming into the flocks don't understand and ignore and waste millions of dollars in revenue because they don't take the time to learn. The pretty house business consists of taking over debt, usually, on homes that are in excellent condition, in excellent neighborhoods, in all price ranges. When you learn how to reverse the risk and put it on the seller where it belongs, the pretty house business will produce a lot more revenue than the ugly house business, and there is no upper price range that you can work in. You'll discover that you can work in $1 million house as easily as you can work with a $100,000 house, as long as you're not making monthly payments and it's keeping you awake at night. All of that is available to you in the pretty house business, so I would challenge you and caution you right up front, even though today is focused on rehabbing and retailing houses, there's a whole lot bigger world out there than what we're going to talk about. And in fact, rehabbing houses is the hardest way to make money in real estate there is, barring none. It's laden with minefields and costly entanglements. We're going to explode those minefields today. We're going to reduce the costly entanglements the best I can from in front of the room. Do not let your education stop on rehabbing houses. I see too many people going through the business as junkie junkers with blinders on. That's all they know how to do. Go out and buy houses cheap, hire a contractor, sell them to owner-occupants. 70% of your revenue will come from the pretty house business if you work in the whole business. And there's three very big reasons. Number one, in the retailing business, you're going to get smaller checks because you're going to be dealing in lower priced properties. In the pretty house business, you're going to get larger checks because you're dealing in higher priced properties. The more dollars you waller in, the more stick to you. Ron's rule. Secondly, in the ugly house business, you're going to get one check and you're out of here. In the pretty house business, you're going to get multiple streams of income, money now, money monthly, and money later. Multiple streams of income will always produce more revenue than one. And thirdly, there are 25 times more pretty houses where you live than there are junkers that need rehabbed. So the pond is bigger to fish in. With all that said, I don't want to discourage you from the ugly house business because it is a great business, as you will see throughout the rest of the day. But I do want you to open your eyes up, take the blinders off, learn all you can as fast as you can about both parts of the business, because you see, you cannot find ugly houses without finding pretty ones. And you cannot find pretty ones without finding ugly ones. And so if you are so narrowly focused you're throwing 70% of your business in the trash, you're also throwing 70% or more of your income in the trash because of what you won't take the time to learn. The good news is you won't know you're doing it, so it won't hurt so bad. The bad news is now you know. Okay. What does retailing mean? Because there are misconceptions about it. And you're following in your book. I am on page 48 in your book, so just follow along with me. In my mind, retailing is selling a property to an owner-occupant and cashing out, or close to cashing out. And by the way, we do not retail houses to investors. Investors don't pay retail. If they do, they're not going to be investors very long. The only outlet, the only exit strategy for properties we're going to rehab are owner-occupants who are going to live in the property. Investors are out of the picture. In fact, there's only one type of property you guys will be selling to investor, and that's wholesaling junkers to bargain hunters. That's the only time investors are going to come into your life. When I say retailing, I mean somebody's not living in the property before we get a check. You see, there's all kinds of ways to sell houses. I can put a tenant buyer in there and lease option it out, and sooner or later they go get a loan and cash me out months or maybe even years later. I can sell it with owner financing. Same thing. I take back a payment, a monthly mortgage. Put a buyer in there, and sooner or later they refinance and cash me out. I can sell it as is to a tenant buyer, or I can sell it as is with owner financing, or I can renovate it and sell it as is with one of those two. But none of that gets me cashed out today. I can wholesale properties to investors. However, that's not retailing, that's wholesaling. All of those methods are in fact selling the property for retail price, but they're not what I refer to as retailing. So let's get clear right now. Retailing equals cashing out. If you want to learn all of those methods, we have boot camps, we have courses to discuss all of those methods. And in fact, the MOS boot camp is where we focus on selling with owner financing and the art of selling on sweat equity. In other words, putting the tenant buyer in there and letting them do the work with their money, which is one of my favorite ways to sell a property that needs work, is discussed in wholesale, retail, and MOS boot camp. And if you want to learn the art of, down here I missed number 4. We can also sell the property with owner financing and sell off the mortgage at the time we sell the property. In other words, we can get the buyer to sign a note back to us, and then we sell that note for cash the day of closing. And in fact, that is a form of retailing because we are getting cashed out. We talk about all of that in the Paper Power Boot Camp. If you're listening to these cassettes right now and you want to know more about all of that, you can ask my staff to send you a catalog. So when I say retailing, I am referring to getting the money now before someone occupies the property. So why should we get into this business? Why should we mess with this stuff? Why should we worry about hiring contractors and getting buyers qualified and going through all that work? And the answer is money. There is no other answer except money. Some people just get a kick out of making something pretty out of something ugly. Me too. I love renovating houses. I mean, I don't with these hands. These hands will never touch a house. They will never lay fingers on a house. In fact, I don't even go to the house anymore. Maybe once in a while I'll take a trip, but when I do, it's not required. It's just because I have this notion to go do it. Frankly, I don't want to hang around these houses. They depress me. Ugly houses. I don't know how anybody could renovate houses with their own hands and not get depressed by the time the job's through. I mean, it's just a lot of nasty, filthy, stinking, ugly work. And no one in this class, or no one listening to these cassettes, should be inside this house doing any work on this property with their own hands. It's absolutely forbidden. That is not what we do with our time. Our time as real estate entrepreneurs should be focused on making the deal. Making the deal. Our money is made when we buy the property. It's realized when we sell the property. All the rest in between is insignificant stuff we get other people to do for small amounts of money. If we focus on doing what business leaders should be doing, creating revenue, your business will grow at a rapid pace. I've heard some of you say already this morning you want to do 6 or 8 deals a year. Frankly, if you're doing 6 or 8 deals a year, even if you're renovating them all, that is no way a full-time job. It is an extremely part-time job, unless, of course, you're in there renovating them with your own hands. And then, of course, it is more than full-time. Some people say, well, it's my therapy. I say if you want to renovate houses with your own hands, you need therapy. If you want to get paid as a painter, go right ahead. I'm going to tell you right now, real estate entrepreneurs make a whole lot more money. And in fact, your minimum acceptable profit is $20,000. That is the minimal. What's the definition of minimal? Minimum doesn't have anything to do with average, does it? Minimum acceptable profit is $20,000. I've heard many of you already this morning say you're making $15,000, $16,000, $17,000. Unacceptable. Unacceptable on a deal where you're going to buy it, renovate it, hire a contractor, get buyer qualified. You must make $20,000 or you've only made one mistake. What is it, class? You paid too much for the property to begin with. That is your mistake. And you cannot make that mistake up in volume. And you know what you're going to learn when you figure out you can make $20,000 per house? If I can make 20, gosh, I can make 25 if I just get a little bit better at buying. And then what will you discover? If I can make 25, I wonder if I can make 30 by just getting a little bit better at buying. And the answer is yes. Show you some of our recent examples here in a moment. If you're going to make $20,000 per house, how many of those do you need to do a year? Surpass your current income. Don't tell me one. The answer is one. You're in the right room. And you get in that job Monday morning and you tell that boss to shove it. Because you know what? If you're making a very small income at doing what you're doing, you don't have much to lose, do you? Okay, now suppose you get a little bit better. Suppose you decide, I'm not going to do a deal unless I make $25,000 on it. Do you realize that if you do 6 measly deals, you're looking 6 measly deals. You're looking at $150,000 per year. What if you get serious and do 25? Is 25 rehabs a year a full-time job? Yes. Means you got to work at least 4 or 5 hours a day, at least 3 or 4 days a week. In order to do 25 rehabs, if you do it my way, if you do it the way most people do it, 25 rehabs a year could be a 60-hour a week. But that just means they're wasting their time doing the stupid stuff that broke people want to do. If you do 25 of these things, and you make 25, you're looking at $625,000 a year. Net income. What's the definition of net? This is income before taxes. All other expenses have been deducted, except for operational expenses, such as any labor you have and ads and so forth. This is net income on those properties. Out of that $625,000 a year, if all you're doing is 25 deals, you shouldn't have more than $50,000 of that or so as operating expenses. So, are you worthy? Yes. Do you deserve that kind of money? Yes. Well, then why aren't you making it? I have students all over the country doing that and more. In fact, I can think of a young lady up in Connecticut who did 53 of these last year and netted $23,000 each. I have a couple figure that up. I have a couple young guys down in Miami on track to do 80, netting $20,000 on each. I have a young guy out in Phoenix that does about 80 of these a year and nets in the 20s on each. And these are just the ones that come to my mind right now. You decide where you want to be. You decide how hard you want to work. But I'll suggest to you, you're going to be a lot better off if you quit this hard working crap and start this smart working crap. There's one lesson I've ever learned. The most important lesson I've ever learned to creating wealth and getting your life back is worth you writing down. This lesson will serve you so well if you'll just start implementing it. And I suggest you write it down and put it up on your, ladies, put it where you put your lipstick. On your mirror, you know. And guys, you can flip up the toilet seat and put it on the back of that. When I started in real estate back in 1982, I was just like most investors, working 60 hours a week, trying to figure out what to do, busting my hump, doing all the wrong stuff. It took me 10 years to figure this out. 10 long years to get this lesson, and here it is. The less I do, the more I make. What does that mean? That means that we have to focus our time on doing the things that only we should be doing that create revenue, and not let our time get sucked up with things that we shouldn't be doing, such as that cellular phone that is surgically implanted in your skull. If you are answering incoming calls at will and letting other people destroy your life, here's one for you. You will never make $1 million in a year. You will never get filthy, stinking rich. Because you don't understand. The less I do, the more I make. There's not an incoming call that anybody in this room has to take or die. And I will tell you that the less of those you get, the more of those you get out of your life, the more time you're going to have to focus on what? Finding deals. That's your job. You got to create the deals. You focus on finding those deals, and you focus on learning how to buy them correctly, and I promise you, you won't have any problem making $25,000 per deal and more. And when you discover that, and then get all the other stuff like Home Depot out of your life, you guys do not belong in Home Depot or Lowe's. It's off limits. In fact, how many of you have a pickup truck? Let me see your hands. Oh my God, for those of you listening, half the room. And how many of you have a riding lawnmower? Okay? You drive the riding lawnmower up into the back of the pickup truck, and you put it out on a corner, and you put a for sale sign on it as a package. Then you will never be tempted to go into Home Depot or Lowe's chasing materials again. And truthfully, if your butt is on your riding lawnmower mowing your lawn, are you practicing the less I do, the more I make? You guys know you can get somebody to mow your lawn for less than it's going to cost you to eat dinner tonight? Hello? Well, then why do we insist on having our lives sucked up with the stupid stuff that broke people do? Because that's the way we were trained. That's why. That's the way we were conditioned. We spend our lives trying to save a penny, and we lose $1 in the process. Walking over the dollars to get to the dimes. That's why the first person that comes up to me today and says, I can't find a contractor that'll do it as cheap or as good as me, I'm going to smack. First of all, they don't need to do it as good as you. Nobody will ever do it as good as you, in your mind. And if they are doing it, if they can do it as cheap as you will do it, they're probably too cheap. But I want you to understand something. Every time you're out there working on that property or doing stupid stuff like chasing materials or all the other stuff that most of you do, you're wasting money and you're taking away your ability to get to the point to where you can create more revenue in your life and financial independence seemingly almost overnight. Look where you're at on this chart. Page 50. If you're going to net $20,000 a deal, just ask yourself, how many is it going to take to get rid of your job? How many is it going to take where you can get out of bed in the morning and do whatever you want to do all day long, go on any trip you want to go on, as often as you want to go on it, stay as long as you like, not worry about what's going on while you're gone, and ladies, buy anything you want while you're there. Forget about this crap of just getting by. Budget in my world is a nasty word. Forget budgets. Go make more money so you can spend more. And by the way, as more you make, the more you will be spending. I can absolutely attest to that. My wife has a black belt in shopping. So where do you want to be on this chart? At $20,000, you want to do 5 deals? Who'd be happy with $100,000 their first year in business? Don't you even think about raising your hand. If you'd be happy with $100,000 your first year in business, what does that tell me? Your expectations are way too low. It's time to get them up. You know how you're going to get them up? Checks. No matter what anybody says to you, the only thing that's going to raise your self-esteem and your expectations is a series of checks made out to you. And the faster you get out there and get that going, the faster you're going to understand this thing is too good to turn you back on. This thing is too good not to focus on and get committed to. I'm telling you, as I'll show you in a minute, with real deals, $20,000 a deal is chump change. But that is your minimal acceptable profit. So, this is a test. What's the least amount you can make on a deal? $25,000. Here's 4 deals that I'm right now. These are in your book. These are recent deals. Got a house that have ARV, after repaired value, ARV, after repaired value. Got a house which is the market value in good condition, with $180,000. It took $15,000 give or take in repairs, and we paid $82,000 for it, and we bought it through a realtor. It's a bank repo. That house is under contract right now. Remember that we said the ARV was $180,000. It's under contract right now for $199,000. Well, Ron, How can you sell it for $199 when it only was worth $180 after repaired when you bought it? The answer is, we said it was worth $199. The buyer agreed. And now that the buyer has agreed, so has the appraiser. It's amazing how that works. Ladies and gentlemen, before I go any further, I want to caution you. Don't you ever sell a house for what it's worth. You sell them for what they're about to be worth. And only you will determine that. And that is as soon as you quit listening to the morons who will tell you to lower the price, not raise it. You guys want to sell houses quickly? Raise the price, not lower the price. Do you understand that we made $20,000 with this? Because I don't listen to people who tell me it's only worth $180. I have single-handedly raised the market value of properties throughout the Jacksonville area during my career because I refuse to listen to the morons who tell me to sell it cheap. Cheap does not compute. We said it's worth $199. Our buyer agreed. Our appraiser agreed. And within a week or two, the lender will close the loan, and then it will officially be worth what? $199. You betcha. Now guess which one we're going to use for a comp next time we go into that area. So the next house like that one is worth how much? No, sir. $219. $219. Do you know if I send 5 appraisers to this property to give me an appraisal, I'll get 5 different answers that would easily be $20,000 to $30,000 apart. Please understand, right here and now, an appraisal is nothing more than an opinion. Your opinion is just as good as anybody else's opinion. If you think it's worth more, and you do, especially if you get it into the condition that we're going to discuss here today. We are selling beautiful homes that we have renovated in this class. We have every right to raise the price to what we think the market will bear. They're as good as any house in the neighborhood when you do them my way. Therefore, we have every right to assume that the market will pay more. Now, what if we're wrong and the market won't pay $199? We could always lower it, can't we? Hello? But if you ask $180, what do you think the chances of getting $199 are? Slim to none. Slim to none. I'm going to tell you that 90% of the time, if you raise the price within a tolerable range, you will get it. 90% of the time. But you won't, because you'll listen to the realtors tell you, you want to sell it quick, you better list it below what it'll appraise for. Bull. That is pure bull. Okay, next deal. Oh, incidentally, we got 110 in it. Now look at there. 82,000 purchase price plus 15 repairs don't add up to 110, does it? Well, believe me, we'll have 110 in it. We'll get to that in a minute when we analyze the true cost of doing these deals. So that means my net is what? $89,000. Does that qualify for my $20,000 minimum? Hello? Oh, okay, just checking. Second one here, 140R, 15 repairs, purchase 72. So we'll have about 85 in it time we get it sold. And that net is what? 45. That qualify? By the way, you notice the variance in these prices, because now we're going to drop down to a cheapie, low-income house, and I deal with all of them. And in fact, when I started in this business, this is all I knew how to do, was these $65,000 houses, which back then were $45,000 houses. I paid 17 for the house. We spent 15 to fix it, and we will sell it for 65 or more. That means we'll have 38 in it. Let's see, 17 plus 15 don't add up to 38. What does it add up to? 32. Believe me, I'll have a higher percentage of the sales price in cost selling that cheapie than I will on that $140,000 house. Anybody understand why? I'm selling a $65,000 house. What almost always takes place? The seller has to suck up all the cost and sometimes even eat the down payment to make the buyer qualify, because people with $65,000 houses rarely have any money, do they? There's a reason they're buying a $65,000 house, and it's not because they can afford a $200,000 one. So you're going to have to bend over backwards to help that buyer get qualified, and that means money that's going to come out of your pocket. So my cost ratio is higher. However, I'll still do okay. Is a $27,000 net on a $65,000 house okay? Does it comply with my $20,000 deal? Or should I lower my standards because my price lowers? Folks, I was making $20,000 on $45,000 houses in the mid-'80s. My net profit is a requirement, not a request. And lastly, this one has been a thorn in my side. $325,000 house. I paid about $145,000 for it, and I thought we were going to spend $40,000 to rehab it. It turned out to be $60,000 because we had to fire a contractor who quit it. We didn't fire him; he quit in the middle. We had to go hire another and raise the price. So look at this: $325,000 house. I paid $145,000 for it. I spent $60,000 to repair it, and I'm going to have, how much is that? $205,000. I'm going to have at least $235,000 worth of cost in this house. So I'm only going to net $90,000. It sucks, man. It sucks. What's the lesson here? The lesson is, folks, when you learn how to buy them right, all the mistakes that you're going to make, and you will make them, will be absorbed in the deal so that you still have a nice profit. In other words, you get paid to learn. You just get paid a little less than you expected. You pay too much, you cannot overcome that hurdle on that deal. I'm going to come back to that chart in a minute. There's 10 steps to retailing a house. We're going to cover every single one of them, piece by piece, and annihilate them and simplify them. And I promise you, if you do this my way, and you won't, but if you do this my way, some of you have figured out that is the smartest thing to do. If you do this my way, you will not have but a handful of hours in the entire process of renovating and selling and cashing out of a house. And just watch it as we go through today. Number one, we got to get a contract to buy the property first. And of course, we got to learn to pay the right price. That is always the first step. And this class, incidentally, starts from that point. We're not going to talk about how to find deals in here today. We're going to talk about from the time we get a contract on a property to closing and getting a check out of it. Then you got to do your due diligence before you buy. Then we got to raise more capital than we need. You know what? Rehabbing houses and selling them requires capital, doesn't it? Say, yes, Ron. Yes. Okay. Then we got to get the house ready to sell. Then we got to locate some prospects. And number 6 is we got to pre-screen those prospects and actually get rid of the suspects. There's a big difference between those two. Number 7, we got to construct and present offers to those prospects, the ones who pass the test up here on pre-screening, and the ones who say they want the house. Then we got to follow up and get that check in our hands as fast as humanly possible, and every single day counts. Then we got to get that thing closed quickly, because we can get paid. There's an awful lot of things happen between the time a loan is approved and the check comes into your hands. I could write a book on those horror stories. Then you got to make your buyer love you and turn into your best source of referrals for your next property you're going to sell. So we literally are going to go through those steps. And step 1 is getting a contract to buy. As we've already discussed, you got to give yourself a chance to succeed. And you do that by don't overpay for the property. In fact, so many people are so hesitant and so afraid to pay for an education, and yet they will pay many times that cost on 1 or 2 deals rather than learn. I know what it is. You know what it is? I know what it is in the male species. It's testosterone. What it is. Us men, no way we're going to read the instruction book. Forget it. Macho man, we don't read instructions. I just got me a Mercedes a few months ago, and it comes with 6 books, 6 instruction books. I just made myself a pact. I'm dying before I'm reading them books. No way. I'm punching every button in that car until I find out what works. And on Mercedes, it's even better because there's a button on the ceiling that I can push, and some guy comes on there, and I ask him, hey, how does this thing work, man? I don't get it. Pretty soon I'm going to be self-trained. I refuse to read those books. I'm a macho man. And I know back in my early career, golly, you couldn't tell me anything. By the time I bought a couple hundred houses, who could possibly know more than me? Boy, I tell you what, the older I get, the more I know, the less I know. And people consistently pay way more in the real world than a simple little cheap education would cost them. But testosterone prohibits them from doing it the easy way. And by the way, ladies, you ain't off the hook. I just learned recently you have testosterone too. You just don't have as much as the men have. All right. Your minimum profit should be 20 or 20% of the ARV. 20 is your minimum. You should be making 20% of your sales price of your property. And if you don't, you simply pay too much. And don't forget your hidden cost. See, a lot of people forget these, especially new investors. They don't understand. Let's see. I got me a $100,000 house. I'm paying $60 for it. I'm going to make $40. True or false? Oh. Not even close are they going to make $40. And that's assuming it needs no work. So I got me a $100,000 house. It needs $20 in work, and I'm paying $50 for it. That means I'm going to net $30. Wrong-o. Not even close. We've got to go through these costs. You got holding costs, which are interest, utilities, and maintenance. And taxes. I didn't get taxes on there. You got sales costs, advertising, closing costs, commissions, and the lower priced property you have, the higher percentage that cost is going to be because the less qualified your buyers are. And advertising in itself can eat you up if you're not careful. You can do it the way I'm going to teach you today, and you won't have a lot of advertising costs. Closing costs you're always going to have. You think you're going to sell a property to a consumer and getting them new financing and not have closing costs, you're kidding yourself. Commissions you may or may not have. You do it my way, you will, because you will never be. How many of you in this room right now would love to be in a position to where you never had to worry about selling houses? All you had to do is go buy them. Okay, the rest of you didn't understand that question, did you? Well, once you get to the point to where you're buying a couple of houses a month, the last thing you want to do is be in the selling position. Get somebody else to do that for you, and I don't mean a realtor. I mean somebody on your team, full-time, focused on your house. Getting to my Selling Houses Fast boot camp, and I guarantee you when you get out of there, I'll get you out of the selling mode and get you into the buying mode where most of your profit is made. Hedge factor. Hedge factors for things you didn't plan on, like cost overruns or reducing your cost to get the property sold. And anything else that you can think of. Here's your formula right here, ladies and gentlemen. The formula to determine the Mayo. The Mayo is the maximum allowable offer. The maximum allowable offer. Your formula is very simple, and we covered it earlier in this course. We went through it item by item, so we're not going to go into detail on that. But if you will just make a note that Mayo equals 70% of your ARV minus your repairs. 70% of your ARV minus your repairs. That means ARV times 70% minus repairs equals Mayo. Why 70%? Because 30% equals 20% net profit and 10% cost. You will absorb 10% of your sales price in cost, and that has nothing to do with repairs. Let me say that again. You will absorb 10% of your sales price in costs other than repairs and other than interest and the cost of borrowing money. Mayo does not include interest and the cost of borrowing money. We'll get there in just a second. Now, what does it say under the formula ARV times 70% minus repairs equals Mayo? What does it say right below that? Scream it out at me, class. Never pay Mayo. If you pay Mayo, you are cutting off your margin and putting yourself in a position to where if anything goes wrong, you will not net your $20,000 or 20%. In addition to that, if you pay Mayo, you have also cut off your exit strategy of wholesaling the property if you choose to. Because when you wholesale a property to investors, you're going to wholesale it at or about Mayo. So if you pay Mayo, you've got no more margin left, and you'll be trying to wholesale properties to people and having them pay too much to overcome you paying too much. In other words, you're looking for the greater fool. And the good news is there's no short supply of them. They'll be generated by the thousands who will go in and pay way too much for a property. But do you really want to build a business selling houses to greater fools when you know in your heart they're paying too much for the house and they're not going to do well in the end? Do you really want to take advantage of what people don't know? What if you were selling to them at Mayo, if you're wholesaling, giving them a chance to make their 20% and loving having to know you instead of hating ever meeting you? I promise you this, if you ignore this rule, you are headed to a seminar. After saying that, I know in my heart, when you get out in the real world, you're going to do everything you can to ignore the Mayo formula. Ignore it if you choose. Keep in mind, I've been at this 20 years, I've been teaching for 12, and I have over 300,000 students nationwide. And I'm going to tell you, no end to the stories that I hear when they break the basic rules. Every business has basics. You break the basics, you're going to take one in the fanny. And the basics are R times 70% minus repairs equals Mayo, and we never pay Mayo. Tread at your own risk if you intend to break that rule. When I come back to my chart here in a minute, you'll see if I pay Mayo. Let's get into a reality sample on page 54. Now it's time to get real. Now it's time to get out of seminar land into the real world. We have a house with an ARV of $80,000. It needs $15,000 worth of work. You're going to go to a private lender or a mortgage broker who's going to get the money from a private lender, and you're going to borrow 65% of the value of the after-repaired value of the property, which everybody in this room can do. You're all qualified for private money because it has nothing to do with your credibility. It has only to do with the collateral in the property. The lender is looking at it like, if I'm only putting up 65% of the value, worst case, borrower don't make payments, I get property, I'll do okay. You're going to be paying anywhere from 12 to 15% for this money. This money is used for short-term purposes. It's designed to be bridge money. It's not there for long-term financing. The price you pay for this money is irrelevant because you will soon discover it's not the cost of the money that counts. It's the availability of it. Because with that availability, and you all have that availability, which I can't get any much deeper than that, everybody in this room has the ability to go find people who have IRAs or other investment capital, not getting them a 15% return, and having them loan the money to you secured by a first mortgage or trust deed on the property at 12 to 15% interest. You're doing them a humongous favor. A humongous favor. I want you to compare your investor loaning you $52,000 at 15% to what they can do with it in the stock market. You understand that the note you create to them at 15% interest, that means that's the lowest amount of return they can get on their investment is 15%. That's the lowest amount. Show me anything you can do in the stock market where you can literally be guaranteed a 15% return on your investment. Are you doing these lenders a favor? Yes, you are. And in today's turmoil times where the stock market is so shaky, believe me, you'll have no trouble finding all the money you need if you just flap your lips. Every July in Jacksonville, I do a 2-day event on just exactly that. I also have a course on it. Just inquire and we'll get you information. In this case, we're borrowing 65% of the value, which is getting to be quite common nationwide. But let's just take a look at our cost here. Let's take a look at some of these hidden costs that perhaps we hadn't thought of along the way. As a brand new rehabber, We got repairs. We were aware of that. They're $15,000. By the way, not one time in my entire career rehabbing hundreds of houses have my repair estimates ever been correct. Not once. I have never put down cost of repairs as $15,000 and had it exactly come out to $15,000. Not once. It's always been at least a quarter over or above every single time. Yeah, right. Close enough is close enough. If you learn to buy right, does it make any difference whether it's $15,000 or $20,000 or $10,000? The answer is no. You learn to buy right, and your fear of estimating repairs will fade quickly. And truthfully, estimating repairs is one of the easiest things for you guys to learn, because you just don't need to be that good at it. But in this case, since we're borrowing the money, let's just assume we're going to go to a mortgage broker like me, or like many of the thousands around the country, and many of which I trained on this business. And I'm paying 5 points, or 5% of that loan. That means I got a $2,600 mortgage brokerage fee coming out of my loan the day I close it. Now, if I don't add that to my cost, am I just kidding myself? That is a cost. Also, in this case, I got $1,000 in closing costs that I'm going to wind up paying as the buyer. You know, things like maybe getting it appraised and getting title insurance or whatever I agree to pay. Now look at that prepayment penalty. A lot of your mortgage brokers will add a 3 months or whatever prepayment penalty. I do. When I make a loan, it's 15% interest plus 3 months interest prepayment penalty. That means when you pay the loan off, you pay 3 extra months interest to the lender. It's a cost of doing business. It raises the return on the investor's money. If that's in there, in your loan, then you must add it in as a cost. Now, I'm not looking at costs here that I have to write a check for. We're going to do that in a minute. But just the same, this will come out of our net profit. Will it not? Say yes, Ron. Yes. Okay. Anything that has a chance of coming out of our net profit, we probably ought to think about going in, not after it's over. And look at that, 6 months interest. Anytime you're borrowing money or anytime you're projecting costs, you must project them for a 6-month period of where you own this property. 6 months. That means you're assuming it's going to take 6 months to turn this property around from the day you buy it. Now, will many times you get it done a lot faster than that? Yes. Should you get it done faster than that? Yes. However, does Murphy live where you live? Yes? That sucker's got condos all over Jacksonville. You betcha. Will sometimes it take you longer than 6 months? Say yes. I know, but it won't apply to you, though, because you're special. You're just too good, right? Well, we'll see. Talk to me after you've been in the business a year or two. Man plans, God laughs. Utilities, 6 months worth. Taxes, 6 months worth. Maintenance, 6 months worth. Selling costs, $3,000. Ron, it ain't going to cost me $3,000 selling no $80,000 house? Yes, it is. In fact, you're going to be lucky to get off with that. Because remember, that includes advertising, as well as all those fees that are going to be on that closing statement that are going to give you sticker shock first time you get one of those things. How many of you were absolutely shocked first time you got one of those statements where you were selling a property, getting your buyer a new loan? Huh? Where'd they get all that crap at? They make up them fees. They got junk I never heard of before. All those fees on there, they stick to the poor seller and make the seller pay. Yep, it's sticker shock. I just can't wait for you to experience that. So, what is the Mayo? Let's just look at it. If I got an $80,000 house and times 70%, that's $56,000, isn't it? Minus the $15,000 in repairs, my Mayo is $41,000. All right? Let's just see what happens if we pay Mayo. Let's take our $80,000, subtract out our $41,000 price, and if you'll look up here, my total of expenses right above came to $29,750. Everybody see that? You know, except for those that don't apply to you. They all apply to you. Now, where am I at? What I net? I netted $9,250 on this $80,000 sale. Is that okay with you guys? No. You're working for free. You might as well go back to that job. That's not enough. Why isn't it not enough? 2 reasons. Number one, we paid too much. Number two, we didn't factor in all of our costs. We forgot about the cost of borrowing that money. In fact, let's just take a look at this sample for a moment here. Just watch here. Let's see where your profit went. Let's say you got $10,000 left over. Let's see where the rest of it went. So add this up. Add up. $2,600 broker fee. $1,950 for 3 months interest prepayment penalty. And $3,900 worth of interest. What do you got? How much? $8,000. Okay? Let's take the $9,000 profit we're showing there on our example and add the $8,000 to it, assuming that we didn't have all those costs. Now what are we at? $17,000, aren't we? What's 20% of $80,000 that I said was your minimal? $16,000. However, what did I say the minimal dollars you could make? 20. 5. You're right. Okay. So where did we go wrong? Again, we paid too much and we didn't take in consideration our real cost. Everybody got it? Okay. If you know you're going to use a private loan, factor in those costs ahead of time. So when borrowing, new formula. R times 70% minus repairs minus funding cost equals Mayo. And most of you will be borrowing money from private lenders to do your rehab jobs with. So now let's do it again over here. $80,000 times 70% equals 56, minus 15 in repairs, minus 8450. We're going to round that up to $10,000. That's Ron's math. That's Ron's new math. Now our new Mayo is $31,000. Got it, class? Well, golly, where am I going to find an $80,000 house for $31,000? There probably aren't any left because I've bought them all. Do you remember how many repairs this house needs? 15,000. Do you know what that looks like to the average person? $30,000 to $40,000 worth of work. You guys learn to estimate the true cost of repairs out there, and it'll put you in the path of opportunity and keep you from losing deal after deal after deal after deal. Repairs don't cost anywhere near what most of you think they cost. In fact, the rehabbers in the room are laughing at you guys all the way to the bank because you won't take the time to learn the true cost of repairs. Get to my wholesale retail boot camp. Let's get you trained with visuals so that it can come in and become from your head to your heart. If you're out there looking at junkers right now and you're passing up deals, you probably already cost you thousands and thousands of dollars. But it don't hurt too bad because you don't know you missed it. Let's see here. Let's go back to page 51. Let's see if I practice what I preach. Who knows? Maybe I just teach this stuff. Maybe I don't do it. Maybe I'm one of them seminar instructors who talk the talk but don't walk the walk. And there's no short supply of them. Let's see what my Mayos were. All right. On number one, where the $180,000 are, my Mayo was 111. What did I pay? 82. On the second one, my Mayo was 83. What did I pay? 72. On the third one, my Mayo was 30,500. What did I pay? 17,000. On the fourth one, my Mayo was 167.5. What did I pay? 145. So, do I practice what I preach? You bet. I'll never pay Mayo. I'd rather not do the deal. In fact, if the deal gets to where it's even close to Mayo, I don't even want to do it. I don't even want to do it. The minute it gets anywhere near Mayo, I lose interest at a rapid pace. Next page. Here's a rule of thumb. And this is a good rule. This is a good rule. if you can't buy a house, fix the house, and make the payments on it while you have it, and pay the cost of borrowing the money from a 65% loan-to-value loan, you probably paid too much. Let me say that again. If you can't buy the house, fix the house, make payments on the house, and pay the cost of borrowing the money out of a loan that's 65% of the ARV, you probably paid too much. I'm going to let that sink in. Oh, golly, if I'm only getting now, then I should be making 35% net profit, shouldn't I? No, because you have a lot of other costs other than buying the house, rehabbing the house, and the cost of borrowing the money. Remember all those other costs we added in there? Yes. 65%. Now, I will tell you right now that as your price ranges go up, in other words, when you get past about 125, for example, you can bump that to 70%. Better write that down. That's not in your book. The reason is because that your spread on dollars is larger between that 70% and that market value. Down in the lower price markets, frankly, you should be able to, if I'm doing a $70,000 house, you should be able to borrow 65%, buy it, fix it, make payments on it, pay the loan costs, and bring home a check. So the lower priced property, the lower percentage, you ought to wind up buying it, or you're going to make less money in the long run. So let's see how that works out on my chart here. Go back to my chart. Now watch. Stay with me. And when I stop this, we're going to take questions. So if you got questions, go ahead and be getting to the mics right now. Remember what I said now. Purchasing cost, cost of borrowing money, and repairs should not equal 65%. Is that what I said? Hello? Yes. All right. You guys still are with me, or have I lose you already? If I lost you at this point, you might as well leave, because I ain't got into the complicated stuff yet. All right. That means, if you look at your chart, that means I got $110,000 in this deal. And in fact, isn't that $110,000 including all the other costs, in addition to borrowing, rehabbing, and cost of money? Yes? Yes. All right. Let's see what my percentages are, including all my other costs, just to play the game. Are you ready? I've already figured them up for you. I did it this morning. I did it this morning over eggs. 55%. That's what 110 is to 199. In other words, my total costs in this property are 55% of its sales price. This one's 68%. That 95? Yeah, it's 95. That 95 is 68% of that 140. Remember, I got all my costs in there. This one's 58%. That means that 38 is 58% of that 65. And this one's 72%. Man, I screwed up down here at the bottom, didn't I? Yep, I'm 2% over. But remember, I'm not, because all my other costs. I got $20,000 in interest on that property that's in that 235, which should have been in the figure. But remember, that includes the cost of selling it and all that other stuff. So let me say it again. Your 65% includes the cost of buying it, rehabbing it, and borrowing the money. That doesn't include sales cost and taxes and insurance and all of that. So I'm at 72% total cost. So I haven't violated my own rule. Besides, I make the rules. I can change them if I want to anytime. But I'm going to tell you what I learned. Anytime I violate my own rules, I pay the same price you pay. It comes back and bites me in the fanny every single time. So again, I think I made the case. Your wealth will be in your ability to buy. Okay, questions? Questions?
Ron.
Anything we covered so far? Yes.
Yes, you said when you get close to Mayo, excuse me, you get close to Mayo. How close is close?
How close to close? Well, has do with a lot of things. And that's a good question, actually. The uglier the house is, the more repairs it needs, the farther below Mayo I'm going to be. Let that sink in. Well, Ryan, that's already in your formula. No, it's not in my formula. Remember, my formula is 70% of R minus repairs. So my Mayo is my Mayo, and it's already been adjusted based on the repair estimate. But I've learned that the uglier it is, the easier it is to buy it way below Mayo, because the perception in the seller's mind is the value is worth a lot less, which of course it is. Does that make any sense to you guys? Your money is not made in cosmetic repairs. Your money is made in the ability to spot ugly, quickly estimate the true cost of repairs, and understand they don't cost anywhere near what everybody else thinks it costs. I'm getting ready to renovate a house right now that is a shell, and this house is only worth $65,000 or $70,000 renovated. It is a shell with 2-before interior. A shell. It's a house, 3-bedroom, 1-bath house with 2-before interior. That's all it is, 2-befores. No. It needs all new electric, all new plumbing, all the bathrooms, all the windows, new roof, and siding on it. My total renovation cost for this 1,200 square foot house will be about $25,000 turnkey with carpet and central heat and air. Now the good news is I only paid $4,000 for the house. So how much will I have in it? $30,000 worth $70,000. I promise you, not one investor out of 1,000 would look at this house and see what I see. By the way, my repairs are not a guess. I have the contractor's estimate in front of me, and we're haggling over that. So, do you understand that that $70,000 house was bought for $4,000 because of the degree of ugliness? There really isn't much to this house. I'm literally building this house. I just get the shell already there. Of course, with the lot and the utilities already there. House is condemned. It won't be. Pretty soon, it'll be the nicest house on the block. That's one of the good things about being in the rehab business. I'll put this house back on the tax rolls. I'll make it a showplace of the block. Somebody's going to have the fortune of living in this thing with everything brand new in it. And everybody wins. Everybody wins. So how far below Mayo depends on the degree of ugliness, and it depends on my degree of greed. And it also depends on my ability to generate leads and drive and get my buying machine cranked up to where my life is not focused on trying to make one little old house the deal of the day, and understanding that the more prospects I have coming in to buy from, the easier it is for me to turn away from those I can't buy at a price I want to pay. Me, I'll pass before I'll buy a house I can't get excited about the purchase price on. The answer is the minimum below Mayo is $5,000. You guys better write that one down. You are not to pay, under any circumstances, do you pay more than $5,000 below Mayo. And I will tell you, you can generally do better than that. By the way, Mayo only allows for a 20% profit now. Yes, sir.
Ron, in your formula for calculating Mayo, you say R times 70% minus repairs.
Yep.
And you said in that 70%, that's 30%, 20% of the 30% represents profit.
Correct.
And 10% represents cost.
Correct. But does not include the cost of raising capital.
The hidden costs.
Or it does not include interest or broker fees or prepayment penalties or commissions if you hire a realtor or anyone else to sell it.
Is there a rule of thumb for calculating the hidden costs?
Nope, because that depends on how you're going to raise capital, which we're going to get to here.
Okay.
I think.
Thank you.
Yes. Any other questions? Got to be on mic. You get to the mic and I'll move on while you're moving. Yeah, raising capital is coming up shortly. Yes, sir.
How do you determine ARV?
How do I determine ARV? Well, we discussed that earlier in the course.
Would you mind going over that one more time?
Okay. So you weren't paying attention earlier, is that it? All right. There are actually several ways you determine ARV in this red system right here. I'll tell you one of the easiest ways. One of them, of course, is get a realtor to help you. All of you have access to database services that you can pull up comps. One of them that we use here is WinDat. There's just numerous, Metroscan, ICS, Equifax has got one, Equidata or something like that. You can subscribe to those. You can go online in most areas of the country and pull up all kinds of resources like comps.com, and there's a whole list of them to pull up comps on properties, realtor.com, or you can do the easy way. You just go into the neighborhood where you're working and find a property that looks very similar, several properties if you can, that looks very similar to yours that are in good condition, and find out what the realtor's got them on the market for. That'll give you a real fast ARV. Especially if you've got 2 or 3 properties that look very much alike and they're all very much priced alike. You got your ARV. And good news is, when you're working these neighborhoods over and over again, you only got to get the ARV once, because it's not going to change on your second or third deal in the same neighborhood. Yes?
Yes. What are the advantages and disadvantages of being a realtor working in doing this kind of thing in the buying?
Good question. The advantages of being a realtor in a junker business are, A, you have keys to the vacant houses. You can get in the lock boxes. B, you have the MLS system at your disposal, of course, which will give you all the comps you want and all the listings in there that are listed by realtors. That's the advantages. The disadvantages are you're hanging around realtors too much. And pretty soon you start thinking like them. And I don't have anything against realtors, especially those in the room or listening to these tapes, because you're weird realtors. You're realtors who are thinking out of the box, or you wouldn't be here, you wouldn't be listening to these tapes. Most realtors spend their entire day trying to make a paycheck, nothing more than if they were working on a job. They're just self-employed. And in fact, they're walking over the dollars to get to the dimes. They're sitting on the acre of diamonds, and they don't realize it. They'd rather make a commission than make 10 times that, learning how to use this commodity they're selling for others. And unfortunately, that mindset is inherent in any real estate office, or most of them. And the more you hang around that mindset, the more you begin to think like that mindset. In other words, you're thinking too small, and you're in the business for the wrong reason. So being a realtor is good. You do have to disclose that you're a realtor, but I don't suggest anybody go take a test just to be a realtor, just to get the keys to vacant houses or get access to the MLS system. You don't need the MLS system to buy all the junkers you want, and truthfully, you go back to the module about finding deals, you'll discover that buying properties that are junkers through realtors is not your best way of doing it, because prices are too high, realtors are buffers in the middle, and when times are good, you have to pay more than you like to pay. There are tons of deals in the MLS system, but I do not want anybody listening to this training to have their entire business focused around buying junkers through the MLS. I'm telling you, if the only way that you know how to buy junkers is to get them out of the MLS, paychecks are going to be far and few in between, your frustration level is going to be high, and there's a 50-50 chance at best you will not be around this time next year. Yes, Bob?
I just make a comment on page 54. One of the costs that can be significant is the insurance. It's not on there.
You mean holding costs?
Holding costs. I would add the insurance in on that page 54.
Thank you. Didn't I? You're right. Interest, utilities, maintenance, insurance, and again, taxes. They're also not on there. Thank you, Bob. All right. Do your due diligence. Step 2. I'll tell you what. Okay. Let's move on to step 2, which is doing your due diligence on these properties. Too many people forget this step. Guess what happens when you don't do your due diligence? Seminar. You betcha. So I have created a checklist for you, and all you got to do is follow the checklist. I don't know how much easier it can be than this. A lot of this stuff is just stuff to bring to your memory to check, and most of it is nothing more than a phone call. But if you forget this stuff, sooner or later you're going to have to take one of those lessons. And by the way, how do you think I learned all this stuff? by doing everything wrong. Item number 1, is the house in a war zone? If the house is in a war zone and you didn't know it was a war zone, is everything going to turn out the way you planned? Okay? The problem with a war zone house is it's in a war zone. People who can qualify for a loan are not going to live in a war zone when they can go outside the war zone and qualify for a loan on a house same price anyway. In other words, if you're going to deal in war zone properties, that's okay, but that is not where you retail houses for cash. Now, I have retailed a lot of houses for cash in war zones, but I'll tell you, it's a hard road to hoe. It's a limited supply of buyers, and not one of them is going to go down without grief. The problem with renovating houses in war zones are, while your contractor is fixing the back of the house, the neighbors are stealing the front of the house. You fix it today, you go back tomorrow, it's gone. That's just the first problem. Then the second problem is attracting qualified buyers to these war zone properties who can qualify for a loan, and truthfully, it's ugly. And you will almost always be taking back a second mortgage when you're selling properties to war zone prospects. Not always. Truthfully, if you bring in enough prospects on the buying end, you can always find somebody who can qualify for a loan. And there's always somebody who wants to live in every neighborhood, even war zones, because their parents live there, their friends live there, or whatever. But do you really want to build a business where you're looking for that very special buyer every time you sell a house? Get outside the war zones. If you're going to rehab and retail houses, there's a fortune to be made in the war zones if you want to wholesale properties to landlords. And there's a fortune to be made in the war zones if you want to be a low-income landlord. You buy them cheap. You borrow plenty of money easily to buy them and fix them. You pay them off on short-term loans. Pretty soon you got property sitting there free and clear after 5 or 7 years, creating cash flow with nothing going out. But the problem with that whole business is the element you have to deal with to manage that business. Now, how do I know this? This is how I started in the business. 276 units my first 2 years in business, and every one of them were in a war zone. Number 2, check the title. That's nothing more than a phone call. Pick up the phone and check the title. Call the title company, tell them you want to do a title search, get a file number. 2, 3, 4 days later, they'll tell you whether you're cleared for takeoff or not. If your title is bad, you go back to the seller, say, title is bad. At the same time, you ask the title company or the attorney, what will it take to clean up the title? You may want to get involved in doing it yourself. You are not obligated to do so. It's a seller's responsibility to clean up their own title. On the other hand, if you get cocky and you tell the seller, you clean up your title and I'll buy the property, could you easily lose the deal in the process? Yes. If you can help them clean up the title, you will. If you can't, you won't. And I will promise you, you will lose deals because the title is bad and they can't or won't clean it up. It's a cost. It's the nature of the beast. Don't you ever write a check to buy a house without getting title insurance on it. If you're getting a loan on it, you won't have a choice because the lender must have title insurance, whether it be private or institutional. What worries me is some of you guys that can write the check without doing your due diligence. You are really in danger. If you go writing a check without getting a title insurance policy from a title company, I promise you, you will soon be parted from your money.